Right, because isn't that the thing? Oh, we teachers, we work so hard, and that's and I think that we're setting a bad example for people when we make that to be the thing to work for. Look how exhausted I am all the time. Like this is a great thing. What if we could approach it differently? Like from a healthier standpoint.
You are listening to the Music Ed Mentor podcast, where we help music educators to build, manage, and grow thriving school music programs and have long and happy careers. And today we are focusing on the happy careers part. I am your host, Elisa Jansen-Jones, author of The Music Educator's Guide to Thrive, a self-help book for music teachers who are looking for a holistic and practical approach to lifestyle management. And today you get to hear from two authors because my guest is the immaculate Leslie Moffat, author of I Love My Job, But It's Killing Me. You get the chance to grab both of our books for free. Mine is linked in the previous episode, number 57 of the Music Ed Mentor podcast, and Leslie has made hers available as well. You'll find a link to it on the show notes page for this episode, number 58, which you will find by going to smartmusic.com/blog and typing podcast 58 into the search bar. Easy peasy. Now, if you're not a regular listener, but you've seen my name on your computer, it's probably because I'm a frequent instigator in some of the Facebook music teacher groups. I love helping other music teachers, obviously, since I have a blog, a podcast, and a conference, all for that express purpose. That's why today we're going to address one of the elephants in the metaphorical music room, the fact that you hate teaching music and don't know what to do about it. We covered in our last episode what to do if you want to hate it even more, or if you're already burnt out. I give you tips in episode 57 on how to get yourself all the way there. But in this episode, we're going to cover more specific ways you can create life inside of your life, where you can create a life you don't want to burn out of because you love it so much. Everyone, every single music teacher I've ever met has some horror story or some bad day experience where they have thought this exact thought. I love my career, but I hate my job. I love my students, but I hate teaching some days. I love music, but my students or parents or administration are driving me crazy. There seems to always be that but in there somewhere. Now, some of us get over it pretty quickly, focus on the good stuff, but often some of us hop online and say things like these actual quotes, which of course I'm going to read to you little bits of, but I'm not going to tell you who wrote them, when, or where, because I super respect your privacy. I'm just trying to make a point here, so bear with me. Quote, anybody else irritated with stuff that was beaten into your head in college, but when you get out, it's into teaching, it's so much different? End quote. Quote, I just need to vent. And I'm going to surmise here. Several board members attended a concert and it went really well, but nobody bothered to say thank you, even though they took all their extra time and effort to do the concert. Quote, I have an extremely rough fourth grade class. Most of them refuse to listen, will argue with each other, cause drama, and more. I have no idea what to do anymore. I feel like garbage. I need a vacation and some advice. I was crying on the way home. It bothered me so much. Quote, I dread my Tuesdays. The mornings go great, but as soon as the afternoon hits, it all goes down the drain. I have a self-contained middle school class of 13 that for the most part do what they're supposed to. They aren't rude to me, but really rude to each other. Quote, I need to vent. I'm frustrated. I've been a teacher for a long time in the inner city, and I've gradually watched the decline of music literacy among my incoming students. Quote, just venting. Today, a 7th grade boy lost it in my class and got violent over a very brief and petty argument with another kid. Lifted a desk straight above his head, chucked it across the room into a cabinet, and then punched the paper towel dispenser, all while screaming and swearing at the top of his lungs. Quote, "So I need to vent. Being the only music teacher at my school is something I enjoy. However, I have special needs and they don't fulfill them. I'm not the type of person to really throw that out there." End quotes. Not one of these is an isolated incident. These are just the people brave enough to share and ask for help and solidarity. So today we're going to talk about some ways you can easily shift your life and your teaching to create a better experience for yourself and your students. It's simpler than you think, and Leslie has helped dial in what you can do, and she speaks from profound experience. You're going to be jaw-dropped or maybe gobsmacked at the struggles she's been through and the simple things she's done to completely transform her life without leaving her career teaching high school band. This is a true tribute to so many of our high school band colleagues who are juggling so much, especially with marching band season in full force right now. But first, a couple of quick announcements. Smart Music has once again teamed up with the International Music Education Summit to offer something completely innovative for your band students. We all appreciate the extension opportunities traditional honor bands give our students, the collaboration, the challenging music, the learning opportunities gleaned from other directors, but sometimes we can't make that happen due to finances, travel struggles, parental support, and location. That's why Smart Music and the International Music Education Summit have created the Virtual Honor Band. This is an experience like no others for your students. To learn more, visit musiceducationsummit.org/audition-information and learn how to get your students involved. While you're there, learn how you can present at a conference session for one of the 2020 virtual events. This year, not only can you offer a presentation right from home, but the summit has created a way for you to make a little money presenting too. Go to musiceducationsummit.org to learn more. Now, let's learn how to live our best life with Leslie.
Well, my name is Leslie Moffat, and I'm about to start my 32nd year as a high school band director. This past year, I've ventured into sharing what I've learned over the years through writing a book called I Love My Job, But It's Killing Me, The Teacher's Guide to Conquering Chronic Stress and Sickness. And through that experience and working with other people, I'm just have spent my entire life in music education, grew up in a band director family where band trips and family trips all just sort of morphed into one. And I wanted to live that lifestyle and have spent my entire 54 years on this planet as a band geek.
So what made you decide to write a book of all things, and tell us what your book is about and kind of what your big message is?
I decided to write a book kind of by accident. It was I love my job, and well, the title is I Love My Job, But It's Killing Me. And truly, I came to this realization several years ago that over the course of the first 28, 29 years of my life, I was teaching and building this program like I really wanted to do. All those dreams were coming true. I was raising a family. I had gotten and worked for everything that I had dreamed to do. And it was hard. I hadn't realized it was going to be this hard, and it was taking a toll on my body physically and emotionally. It was hard to teach up 300 other people's kids and then come home and raise my own family, make the babies in my belly and nurse them and do all those things. And there was a cumulative effect on my physical and mental health. And so as much as I loved what I was doing, I would miss lots of school because I would not take time out when I would get a little bit sick, and then I would get a lot of bit sick. And then I went through lots of surgeries, lots of medications for everything from attention deficit disorder to anxiety and depression and pain meds and anti-inflammatories and meds to help me sleep. And I was using medicine to help me do my job, and it started to be really awful to just try to get through the days. And then my dear friend Lori, who was a choir teacher, same age as I am pretty much. We raised our kids at the same time. We were neighbors. And she got ovarian cancer about 6.5 years ago. And I watched her as she fought that disease, but it got so deep rooted. And we talked all the time about our stress we were under and what research I've done. And I learned all about stress and how it impacts us. And as I watched her suffer and struggle and eventually pass away this past December, I realized uh, I couldn't go down that same path. And so I had to figure out how to get healthy. And that made teaching different. And that meant approaching teaching differently. And so I ended up writing a book about the journey I went on and how I was able to take everything I learned about what not to do and then the things I learned about what to do and completely transform my personal life and my classroom life. And you know, as teachers, we got to, if we learn something and know something and believe something, we know we have to share it. And so my book turned into pretty much a lesson plan based on my life story. And it was created so that teachers can first make sure that they're coming from a place where they're going to be able to be that resource for the kids in the classroom. But we can't be that resource and be that strength for everybody else if we can't take care of ourselves first and foremost. So that's why I ended up writing a book. And that was 1 year ago yesterday. I wrote in my journal that, or yeah, 1 year on the 12th, that I wanted to write a #1 New York best-selling book. And that same day of this year, 1 year to the day, I got notified by the shipper that the print books have been shipped to me. In the meantime, it was released as an ebook and has reached thousands of people already. It's been really remarkable. But it became the lesson plan for how to get to a place where you can stay in your teaching job and have the strength and stamina to do it, you know, because we all go into this because we love it. I mean, doesn't everybody want to be that music teacher who, you know, gets up there and inspires people? And so why don't we've invested a lot of time and money and energy into it. And I want to just provide a tool for other teachers so they can stay in this career as long as they want to.
Very nice. So we just aren't, prepared for the rigors of the job. And I don't know that we are going to see an immediate change in what those rigors of the job are, but we can change ourselves. It goes back to my very first podcast episode, which is, what they didn't tell us when we started teaching. So what I would love to talk about first, Leslie, is what not to do, right? You said for years and years you did it wrong. I doubt it was just because you were a martyr of sorts, right? Did you feel do you feel like we wear a badge of honor that we martyr ourselves for our jobs?
Right, because isn't that the thing? Oh, we teachers, we work so hard, and I think that we're setting a bad example for people when we make that to be the thing to work for. Look how exhausted I am all the time. Like, this is a great thing. What if we could approach it differently? From a healthier standpoint, what I now know is I guess we can call it a mistake, or my learning opportunity was my program was reflecting and doing everything I wanted it to do. But what I didn't know, and I realized it through reading Sherry Salata's book, The Beautiful No, is learning to say no, and to be able to put the quality out there. And I was wanting the big program. I wanted everybody to be part of this. I wanted it to be seen in the community. So I was out there actively searching for places for us to go. I was the go-to gal who could get a band here for that or have a combo play for this event. So I was building this gigantic program. I wanted to build it, but it got out of control and I didn't know how to manage all of it. And so I had to really reflect and realize that it was reflecting exactly what I was doing. And the big lesson there was when it got so chaotic, like there's so many things to manage and how can I do all this? Maybe I needed to come back and bring the program back to a different, it was time to reevaluate. So keeping that, if things aren't feeling right, where are we going with them? Are we going towards a goal that maybe we want to reshift or rethink, or it's time to change with what's going on? And I think not being afraid to constantly be aware of is this activity we're doing, is this lesson, is this in the best service of the long-term goal of educating these kids? Are we, keeping that at the center of everything? Or are we putting our kids out there and just worried about, building a big program? Just what's at the heart of what we're doing?
Right. So going to the student-centered learning. And how were you, how did your health get to be affected?
Well, Zero period jazz band is the dumbest. Zero period anything is a horrific idea with high school. So my schedule, first of all, was grueling. My first class started at 6:30 every morning. And so I had to be out, up at the school by 6 to open things up. And then it was constant, instruction and all of that until the end of the school day. And then, of course, you know how band directors are. We've got meetings, rehearsals, activities, sporting events, field trips to plan, community stuff to go to. I was getting worn out. I mean, physically, it was exhausting. Managing all of that became a lot. Mentally, trying to juggle everything. I had always had some chronic health issues with what I was told was permanent arthritis and all these other things. And I never could take care of my body the way I should have. So things just got more painful. So more medication came in, and I wouldn't stop. I'd get a sinus infection, but you have a concert coming up, so you can't miss the concert. So you go to school sick, and then you get sicker, and then you end up in the hospital with pneumonia. Those kinds of things would happen. And started noticing a pattern, though, that during the summers I was never sick. So then my doctors would say, well, it's just stress. And then I was like, well, then that seems like I should be able to fix it. But I couldn't. I just kept doing more stuff. And then, as you have, for me, being pregnant, running rehearsals and doing all that became more and more exhausting. And then trying to nurse babies on planning periods and do all those, the pumping and the like meant that I was physically exhausted during the day from doing that. And I still had to do all the extra planning. So I was running, 15, 16-hour work days at times. And it just wore me out. And it started with back surgeries and neck surgeries and just everything. And the medications I was on, and I was falling apart in an attempt to stay healthy, if you will, so that I could stay in the job and teach, because I was afraid to say no at work. And it just became too much to handle. And so that's how it took a toll on my health. But I didn't want to let the community down. I didn't want to let the kids down. And I was the one that had tried to build this big program. So I felt really responsible for maintaining it. I was really struggling a lot.
So what was the straw that broke the metaphorical camel's back for you that made you change your life? And what did that change look like?
In April of 2017, I went back into urgent care because I was starting to be really throwing up a lot. I was physically sick, and started going through all these batteries of tests. I had put on a whole lot of weight, my doctors were like, well, we'll start you on some new meds. And I'm like, I can't do any more medications. And I just realized as I watched my friend, literally was watching her die, I was like, I'm going to be next if I don't do something drastically different. And so I ended up missing the rest of the school year. And I had just gone to my doctor a couple months before thinking, I said to him, and I was 51 at the time. I said, I think I have early onset dementia. I can't remember stuff. I'm scatterbrained. And he said, well, we can't put you on any higher doses of ADHD meds because you're on the highest dose possible. And so I was just like, my God, what else is there? And finally, I had to have a heart to heart with myself. I couldn't go back to school for a while because I was so physically sick and I was throwing up and I was emotional. I couldn't make another decision. So I missed the rest of that school year. My dad took my high school band on their trip. He's retired music teacher. He took them to Canada, conducted their performance. I mean, it was terrible. And I was like, I've got to do something different. And so I had to find a new way. I couldn't keep doing the same old things. So I discovered yoga. Well, I didn't discover yoga. I went to a yoga class with my husband, and we discovered the benefit. Yeah. Wow, am I great or what? I created yoga all by myself. I discovered the power of yoga. And I remember laying there in Shavasana first of all, I did my first swan dive onto his mat with sweat dripping down my face. It was a very embarrassing situation. I was super uncoordinated. I was sweating like crazy. And then we get in Shavasana where we're lying there still. And I'm thinking, I'm a busy woman. I don't have time to lay here and just be still. I've got things to think about. I thought that was the silliest thing ever. But for some reason, I went back the next day. And I was really drawn in to this whole follow your breath and training our minds to let thoughts pass us by or to go by. And how do we calm ourselves down? Because that was never an option for me, except if I took some medicine to do it for me. And I became fascinated with this and started seeing an acupuncturist. And then I went to my regular doctor and said, I need to come off this medication and I get healthier. And I realized that ADHD, after 30 years of high school bands, 60 kids an hour, every hour on the hour coming at me with instruments, they were well disciplined. I had great classroom management, but that's still a lot of stimulation. Who doesn't
Hmm.
need to be decompressed? And so after I missed school from April to the end of the school year and went back the following September. And when I walked in the room, the kids looked shocked, and rightly so, because I had lost 65 pounds and I was in a much healthier space. But I told them that physically I looked nothing. It was the change was nothing compared to what I had been going through on the inside. And I explained to them that I had dealt with anxiety and depression and attention deficit. And I said, I'm going to have a hard time teaching if I don't change some things because I don't get medication anymore to help me with attention deficit. So for me to be focused and to serve you, I have to reset before every class. And that I practice it every day at home in a way of being mindful and being quiet for it to settle down. So I need to practice it when you come in the classroom. So we're going to do this together because I'll need your help with this. And I just appealed to them on a human level that I just need to do this so I can teach you and not have to take meds. And I began doing it as a way so I could calm down between classes. Immediately, I saw these kids be given permission to slow down and stop for just a couple minutes as we did a little breathing routine and we all did it together. And suddenly I was just amazed at how it helped me reset for each class. The kids reset for each class. That was great. Well, then it just became even better as the years have gone on now. And it's become a part of our process to start our class each day with this mindfulness exercise that I do with them that puts them in the frame of mind now when they hear my voice even, they're just associated with, we go into our calm space. Running class is so much different, so much easier. They're more engaged. Their bodies are more relaxed and they vibrate differently with the instruments. They play in tune differently. There's a different settledness and musicality with the classes. So it's actually this quest for my own personal health has actually become something that's impacted my students on a human level because it's all biological, right?
Right.
We're wired to do that. But if we don't ever teach kids how to take the time to do this, then they don't know how. Then they walk out of our classroom different people. They respond differently in other classes. It's just been amazing to me.
Leslie, what you're talking about. Okay, first, I have to rewind you a little bit
Okay,
because
yeah, I
not
talk a lot. Sorry.
everybody knows what Shavasana is.
Yeah.
I do because I've practiced yoga for the last 10 years. So, for those of you who don't know, Shavasana is also called corpse pose. You're pretty much just laying on the ground and your shoulder blades are kind of tucked behind you and your palms are facing the sky. And in traditional asana yoga, we usually end the practice. We call it a practice. You could call it a workout. That's how I got into yoga. Was I just wanted to be stronger and more flexible because I was training for triathlons, right? So
Oh.
I didn't discover the metaphysical part of yoga until I started going weekly. And we would start class with like an intention. And I was like, well, my intention is to be stronger and more flexible so I can be faster on my triathlon, right?
Mhm.
But then we get to the end of class and you lay in Shavasana or corpse pose and you just breathe. And the way that that first teacher of mine said it is she said, we're just going to lay here and let our bodies absorb everything we just taught it. And as a teacher, like that made sense to me. We just went out, took our bodies to a new place, somewhere it's never been before. And now it needs a minute to think about it. Just like when I was first learning a really hard scale on my French horn, I had to think about it and do it enough that we let it soak in. So anyway, so that's a little bit about yoga. But yeah, it's, what you're talking about is so relatively fringe in our society because for so long we've been trained that bigger, better, faster, stronger, go, 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 go is the good and important thing. That if you're there at 6 a.m., if you're leaving by 6 p.m., wow, that's leaving early. And we wear that as a badge of honor and talking about, the power of energy and how meditation transforms. Like I was just writing an article today and I touch on meditation and it still feels like weird for me to throw that out there in such a mainstream environment. Does it feel weird to you to be talking about how you do, you know, connecting intentions? And maybe it's just the culture that I'm from that was all considered frou-frou and really fringe.
I like talking about it with my students as more, how our bodies are our instruments, and we're like recalibrating our bodies together, just like we tune our instruments. When we come in and do this exercise of breathing together, and like Shavasana, sort of to me, the same thing, that recalibration or that bringing all of us into the same, a similar heart rate and similar physical space, um, which I believe is the way, a good way to approach it for me in the classroom, because my kids then understand it too. Not just, is this some woo woo stuff she's doing, but oh, this physically connects and helps me become a better musician as well. Um, and how that vibration piece and becoming one with the instrument and feeling that differently when they're not with that other energy that they might have had if we hadn't settled them down.
Right. And we talk about how when we're in tune, that lines up the sound vibrations. How come we can't explain that we're vibrating all the time as energetic beings? And if we can train our personal vibration to be just as in tune as our instrument vibration, then why can't we experience those great, amazing things in our lives instead of just in our music?
How often do we see kids sitting there and like the knees are bouncing up and down, just that nervous energy? And then we want them to take their fine motor skills and play a fast flute passage, but they can't even control the energetic stuff in their body, that subconscious stuff where the knees bouncing up and down or something. And if we calm them down first, and we don't have that nervous energy going on, then when we want them to do those fine motor skills with their fingers, they've got more control. And I wouldn't have believed that until I've been watching this happen. I'm just fascinated by the how this is showing so many different benefits.
So, can you walk us through what you do energetically for yourself and tell us what you do for your students?
Yeah. So before I with my zero period class, I get up at 3:30 in the morning because I need to have time for me to be grounded. So I do a personal meditation time. Just, I visualize my day. I literally walk myself through the day, how I envision it, wanting and expecting it to go, because I believe that's the way you set things up for success. I get myself really grounded. And then with each of my classes, when they come in, we do our routine of coming in, signing in, getting our instruments, sitting down. Everything's on the board, of course. And then once I've put attendance in the computer and the like, I hit the lights, and the lights go off. And what's happened after they've practiced doing this long enough, as soon as I hit the lights, they become responsive, a month or so into the school year. But shut the lights off. And I just invite them to notice what their breath feels like. And then I do a body scan with them, inviting them to close their eyes if they're comfortable with that, or to have a soft gaze, and a simple, like we would do in a yoga class, or just anytime we want to calm down, is just noticing how our body feels, noticing what it feels like if we have our tongue on the roof of our mouth, and on our next exhale, what would it feel like if we allowed it to relax? And I just take them through the different body parts until we've talked from top to bottom and what it would feel like to relax. And I invite them to notice how it feels. Sometimes we'll take their pulse at the beginning of class, and then I'll just talk them into a cozy, feeling comfortable, and let's take 10 breaths and just relax. And then at that point, when they're super relaxed, I invite them again, notice how you feel, bringing in awareness to if their breath is a little easier. Maybe we take the pulse again, and they inevitably notice a difference there. And then at that point, I'll often just say, well, let's come back now into some movement and do that. And then we go right into our warm-up chorales, tuning, and we're done. We're ready to start class. That's a 4-minute process. Sometimes I'll add in, when they're really quiet in that relaxed space, I might have them listen to a piece of music that we're going to be playing, not tell them anything about it, except ask them to notice how it makes them feel. And then that prompts some really cool discussion from a different way than I used to teach it and stuff. Then when they're relaxed, they take the music in differently. So just different things we do there. Sometimes we'll talk about visualizing what it'll be like at the concert, and we'll talk through that and what will you feel like during that. And we use that time to plant those seeds for those things. But most of the time, it's just a simple, let's breathe, let's get relaxed. Now let's stretch our bodies a little bit and go into our warm up, and we keep it to 4 minutes, and that's the best investment in our day.
Okay. Awesome. And what does your morning routine look like? Because you're up at 3:30.
I do, yes, because I like to have just some quiet time. I like to have my coffee and sit quietly. I go in my hot tub. I do some yoga, and then I love to pack my husband a lunch, not because he's not capable, because I like that routine for me to just sort of taking care of my own family. It just makes me feel like I'm not shortchanging anybody, and I take time to be in the quietness, because I am surrounded by 300 students a day, all of the noise and instruments and beautiful music that comes with that, all of the electronic devices, all of the emails, all of the parents, all of it. And so it is the only time I have where it's just me. And even in the summer, I'm up by 4:30 or 5 at the latest, because that peaceful time when it's quiet is what I now do instead of taking ADHD meds to help me calm down and focus. I don't have side effects that are terrible from this. I sleep better now because I know I'm gonna, get that solid sleep and then get up and go. It's really been important to me though to make the first part of my day intentional and the first part of each class intentional.
Very good. And starting out the day that way is one of the most important things I think we should do if we want to improve our lives. And,
Hmm.
I read a book recently, well, recently, probably in the last year, called Urban Monk. Have you read that book?
No, I have not.
It's excellent. So the author is a monk, and he, in each chapter, describes how the monks take an approach to a particular thing, and then how we can adapt that for our urban environment. And he made a really profound thing, and I have to apologize to my listeners because this comes up in almost every episode, I feel like. But how we start our day, if the first thing we do is look at our phone, then
Mhm.
that's accepting what other people are giving to us. It's not us
Right.
giving to the world. It's not us giving to ourselves. It's other people basically inflicting their desires into our lives, right? So whether we're checking social media, we're reading what other people are putting out and not what we ourselves want to be putting out. So I'm a
Right.
huge advocate for, even if it's only 10 minutes earlier in the morning, you don't have to do a 3:30 like you or a 4 a.m.
Right.
like
No.
me, because I'm a 4 a.m. girl. But that does give me like the first hour of the day to drink my coffee and to do my yoga and to lie in shavasana for a good 10 minutes and to go
Hmm.
through my vision. And I don't even plan my day at that point because I plan my day the night before, so I already know what I'm going to be doing in the morning. But yeah, just having that idea that how you intentionally start your day makes all the difference in the world.
It does. And I even have gone so far as to um, uh, when changing my alarm clock sound, instead of that, some god awful sound that sounds like a truck coming to kill
Yeah.
you in the
Wah,
first thing in the
wah,
morning.
wah, wah. Yeah.
Yeah, really, is that how you want to be jolted into the day? For God's sakes, no. A much more welcoming sound, and something that doesn't frighten the bejesus out of you is a much more pleasant way to start the day.
Of
So just those little kinds of things, so you
Yeah,
don't dread that sound.
they have smartphone apps that are like easing into waking up. So it's just a little bell sound that progressively
Mm,
gets louder. So if you're in a
yeah,
light
see,
sleep, it really easily wakes you up. If you're in a heavier sleep, it just gets louder and louder. I just wear my Fitbit and it vibrates when my alarm goes off.
mm,
So I
mhm.
wake up with the little vibration on my wrist, and then I have my alarm set and it's in the other room. So I have it set for 2 minutes after my watch alarm. So if for some reason my watch alarm doesn't wake me up, the phone in the
Yeah,
other room does. Anyway,
got a backup plan.
yeah, these
But those tricks, yeah, those things matter just to
strategies
get that
for
mindset.
becoming
Yep.
a morning person.
Yeah.
Cool. So we've talked about how you've changed your health life and your mental wellness life. Talk to us about how you say no.
I have to, I've had to rethink how I do it, and realize is what is the driving force behind what I'm doing. I want to teach I need to be a role model for my students, right? And if so, is what I'm doing helping me be that role model that helps them, become the responsible students that they need to be and all those things. And if I'm being asked to just throw a band and can you get a band together to come play for some kind of an event and da, 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 is it serving the needs of the kids? Are we using them in the right way or not? And is it helping to build the program that I think that our students need and all? And if it doesn't, then I, can politely decline and say that doesn't align. This is not something we can do right now. But if it is something that it is good for our kids, then I have to understand what is it going to take, and am I willing to do that with the sacrifices? And then if I say yes, it's a hell yes. And I think that that's been a real important lesson I've learned from my mentor that I work with. Is if you're going to say no, then say no and be okay with it. But if you're going to say yes, then it's a hell yes, and you want to get in and do it. And it means doing less, but doing it better, doing it more, being more present. There's some stuff you have to do. Let's face it, but a lot of stuff you really don't, that you just kind of end up doing because you've always done it, and just reevaluating that is super freeing.
Yeah, I totally agree. Have you started delegating a lot of your stuff?
I've always been a delegator, but I was afraid to let go of the control when I delegated. It was like I'd hover, because who could do it as good as I do, right? Because I'm a control freak, or I used to be a control freak. So what I've learned the last several years is delegating and letting go, and realizing someone will do it differently than I will. And that's probably okay, because I'm not the expert at everything. So delegating was not a problem for me, but delegating and being free enough to let it be done differently, maybe even better, maybe worse, or maybe not get done the right way, whatever. But being willing to let go of it once I delegate is the part that has been the most helpful of that piece, I think. Not worrying.
But it took you years and years to get to that point. How do we, as fresh out of college music teachers who just get our first job and we're super excited and we're like, I'm totally trained and I can do it on my own, and we're feeling that rush of ambition in our lives. Do you know what I'm talking about? I'm thinking of my I probably shouldn't talk about who I'm thinking about, but you know what I mean? Like, you start the new job and you're like, I'm going to make all these changes and I'm going to make this my own. And I think that's a bad choice personally. I think you should just try and do your best and maintain and make things nice how they are, and then make changes once you already have things dialed. But what do you say to the people who are just graduating, super ambitious, maybe starting at a new school, and you know that they're not going to say no?
And that's because part of it is the administrators know that too, and they'll take advantage of that, because, and I think if we think of it, what a privilege that people come to us and want us to be places, right? That's pretty cool. So one of the helpful things you can do is if somebody's coming to you and saying, from my thing was, could you have the band at some more sporting events? Could we have live music? And so I thought, it's really cool that you want us there. Do you want the band there? Do you want more people in the stands? Or do you just want some music that's playing? In between sets, does it have to maybe not be a full band? Could we send a small group of kids to have a little rock band, or somebody with an iPod, and maybe helping, if you can get down to really what is it when somebody wants you to do something? Is it, their solution is just get a band there, but maybe the solution is they just want some community involvement, or you could say, I could send a small group of people to come do this. Maybe figuring out some other ways, if you can help people meet their needs, that's a way to do it. And then when I was a beginning teacher, and by beginning, I mean the first 20 years, I was often asking for help, but not being very specific in how I asked for help, because I thought it would be like too bossy, right? So I'd say, if you can help in the classroom, let me know. And I would wonder, why would people not just step up? Well, I guess that could be intimidating. Well, what's she going to want me to come in and teach, or what? So the more specific you can be with what you want people to help with and what you need them to do, like pass out programs at the concert on such and such a date, show up at such and such a time, they'll already be folded, you'll be done at a certain time. And if you can do those kinds of things, then it's easier as a teacher to delegate, to get the task done and done right, and then to take it off of your plate and out of your to-do list, so that you can focus on some other stuff. So those are some techniques that I would try to employ if I were a new teacher and trying to say no, or figure out how to juggle all this stuff. Is how do I let other people help me, or how do I help solve the needs of the person that's asking me to do this without necessarily having to make such huge commitments of time that might otherwise be involved.
But how do we check our ego? Because we want to do everything. We want to prove ourselves, right?
Well, that's a great question. And that's why I got to the point I got, because I didn't know how to do that. 'Cause, and I think just uh, getting back to, is this my ego on the line? Or, there are a lot of groups that do a lot of sporting events. And I used to think, "God, that's terrible." Well, then I realized um, that they're using that part of their band program to build the camaraderie with the students. And it's those events aren't really about marching at the football game as much as the camaraderie that they're building with their school, their community, and their schools. And they're using those events to build it there. And as long as they're doing that for the service of the students in the music program, then that's a great thing for them to do if that's serving the program. But when they're doing it because they, as teachers, you have to just evaluate, am I doing this because I want to look cool? Or am I doing it because I know this is what my kids really need? And to get out of your own way is really hard. But what I found is when you do the things that are serving your kids the best, your program gets a whole lot better than if you're trying to do what you think is going to make it better. That's the key.
Yeah,
If you serve the kids first, then your program's going to do all those cool things you want it to do.
right. And instead of focusing on, your ego being entirely wrapped up in your career, think about all the stuff you can do outside of school that can boost your ego, right? Do you
Yeah.
have any
Well, and just
fantastic
what
hobbies that you love to do, Leslie?
for a lot of years I did not. And I got lost. I mean, my hobbies for fun were, planning the next band booster meeting or fundraisers. And then, maybe 10 years ago, I remember I came home from a jazz field trip, 4 days of sleeping on a gym floor with a bunch of teenagers. And I decided I needed a creative outlet. And I got a Bob Ross DVD video for painting. Have you ever seen Bob
Oh,
Ross?
yeah, of
Um,
course, of course. I love Bob Ross.
and
He's my spirit guide.
I know, I love that guy. And so I went to Michael's and bought some paints, and I brought a music stand out in the living room, and I put towels all over the floor, and I put that DVD in. This is before you could just stream it or anything. And I did my very first painting of, they weren't very happy clouds. And those trees, yeah, it was not happy because he makes it look a whole lot easier than it really is. But I took up painting, and I look back now and I realized it was so hard for me because my only elective school had ever been music. I had never gotten to explore other arts, and it became something that I was fascinated with. And I look back and I realized it was a mindful activity for me. It made me have to focus on doing something so much, almost went into a trance, and I became so focused on that I could find that creative part of me that I had not been able to nurture because I'd gotten so busy and nurturing it in everybody else. And so I got into painting and doing things like that, and then more writing of stuff. And those are the things I love to do now. I'm being out in nature. Oh, put me outside and let me walk.
Yeah, one of the best ways that I've heard to avoid burnout and to obtain that, you know, unicorn that is work-life balance is just to find something that gets your mind going like that. Find some
Mm-hmm.
creative outlet. And everybody seems to think that music is a creative outlet. And I'm not saying that it can't be. I think in the right circumstances, it absolutely can. But in most of our classical, traditionally trained Western music education, and correct me if this is not true for you, but I wasn't taught to compose. I was taught to regurgitate. I was taught
Mm-hmm.
to follow the symbols on the page and play it as perfectly as I possibly could. And if you told me to just invent something on my French horn or sing whatever I wanted, I was like, "What? Why would I do that?" So I
Right.
wasn't so much a creator or a creative. I was an analytical, regurgitating person.
Music became a visual art for me most of the time
Oh,
because could I reproduce what I was seeing? And I taught it that way too, because that's what I learned.
right.
I think that, and that's why I was saying, like, when I get the students in a nice calm space, sometimes I'll have them listen to music because music is much more intuitive than we allow it to be. We go to school and we screw things up, and then we try to teach the kids stuff that if we get out of their way, they'd learn it a lot faster,
Right.
you know? And so that's been the beauty of this, that's where I didn't understand all the benefits of allowing students to get down to letting the music educate them instead of me trying to be an interpreter, letting them pull things out of the music that I could never have told them about. Um, yeah, so that's been just a beautiful discovery.
Oh, of course. And then you get them experiencing it on a whole new level, which opens up their creative minds. But having something for us who are in that space all the time to get outside of that space and create in another way. I used to love to write poetry.
Oh.
I probably still do sometimes, but I would never confess it on the podcast.
Did you find that after you studied music so much that as a music teacher, it's so hard to use music in a way without finding yourself analyzing it? I mean, because you've been trained to listen so differently, so it is harder to use it as a relaxation tool, I think.
Oh, no, totally, totally. So listening to classical music can be quite calming to some people. For me, it became a task that my brain took on.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah.
found
What part of the form are we in? Yeah.
exactly. So I found that the most relaxing music for me to listen to was country western music.
I can see why.
Because
Because
I didn't have to analyze
you
a
hadn't.
thing. It was 3 or
No,
4 chords and it was intro, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, chorus. Ta-da.
but it wasn't the stuff you'd been the same genre that you'd been analyzing to death all those years. So you could look at it from a different, through a different lens,
Oh,
or just
precisely.
let it present itself to you, and you didn't have to worry about all that other stuff.
Yeah, I just got to just sit back and enjoy it for the sake of enjoying it until I
Mm-hmm.
no longer enjoyed it. And now I'm super into hip hop for some reason. So, I don't know.
Way cool.
Yeah, and metal. Just recently got into some metal, which is a little weird.
Really?
I know, but
How about that?
I don't know. I have influencers in my life, I suppose. I'm not going to say who they are.
I'm gonna call them out.
They know who they are. If they ever listen to this episode, they will know who they are. Um, so what if we can just wrap things up into a pretty little package, tie a bow on top for teachers who are listening to this at any time of year, because as much as we need it going into the start of the school year, if we're listening to this right before festival season or right as we're starting into Christmas with the big project, what are like the big takeaways? If we can change 1 or 2 major things in our lives to help us find that work-life balance, what would you say we can do?
I hesitate to say balance. I think finding out how to integrate the two in a way that works for you, and you've alluded to this on your podcast before too. But that whole the shifting of as we go through the seasons of what we're teaching and how our students are going through when they're going through all the standardized testing, they're in a different place, and it's hard to get them to settle in for rehearsals in your class, and you might be getting ready for stuff. So you have to be flexible. You have um, to be intentional with what you're doing, but be flexible with where people are and acknowledge that. And sometimes you just have to stop and reevaluate and make some decisions on, is this really the most important thing I could be doing right now? Because if you're in the middle of a right before a rehearsal or in a rehearsal and things are just the concert's coming up and you're getting in that space and things aren't working, do you continue in that mode, or do you need to learn how to stop, reevaluate, and reshift your energy so that you can make sure that you're putting them where they need to go? Because otherwise you're going to spin your wheels. And I've seen what happens when you don't take that time to just to put the brakes. I call them speed bumps. When you get annoyed when you're driving and there's a speed bump and I got to slow down for a second. The purpose of the speed bump is to cause you to slow down and check your surroundings and make sure you proceed with caution so you and everybody else are safer. And we need those little speed bumps in our lives just when we think we don't have time for them. That's the exact moment when we need to stop and go, what do I need right now in this moment? Maybe I need to stop and have a drink of water and rehydrate because this headache's killing me. And then I'll be in a place where I can think a little better in 5 minutes, kind of thing. So I just, those speed bumps, if you use those times when things get a little crazy to make sure you stop and reevaluate and then proceed in the right way, but one step at a time.
That's amazing feedback. Can we backtrack to one thing that we didn't touch on?
Yeah.
You and I are both mothers.
Yes, we are.
And we both had dads who were longtime music teachers.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but often I felt like my dad's students were more important than his kids, that he spent a lot more time at school than at home. And I can say these things now because he's dead, so he'll never hear this. I'm impressed I can laugh about that now. Go me. So
Mm,
I was kind of in a similar situation as you. I spent an entire year pregnant. I spent my student teaching uh, breaks in the middle of the day pumping milk for my daughter.
mhm.
And I decided really early in my career, I was 3 years in, I had opened a brand new school. It was my total dream job. I absolutely loved it. And I decided that I was going to be a mom while my kids were little. And it was one of the hardest choices I ever had to make because I didn't feel like I could be the kind of music teacher I wanted to be and the kind of mother I wanted to be. And I realized other people don't have that choice, and you didn't take that option of staying home. Did you? You worked straight through being a mom, right? How did you manage that? And do you feel like you've missed out on anything?
Um, in some ways, yes and no. My dad, it was our whole family life when I was a child. We did all those things together. We went to the school events. We were sitting by the band at all the games and all, and at concerts. And so I always envisioned that I would be a high school band director, that my children would be part of the community. And then my dad was my high school band director as well. And I always wanted my own children in my program. And so yes, my student, we did the same thing with my own personal, as an adult. I raised my kids. They went to everything my band kids did. The band kids were the babysitters for my students, just like my dad's band kids had babysat us. I was redoing all, living out exactly what I planned. But I kept justifying it to myself because I knew that when my girls, who are 4 years apart, I have three daughters 4 years apart, that once they started high school, in 2004 was when my oldest would start, and 12 consecutive years, as each one, I got each child for 4 years, and then the next one and the next one. I had 12 consecutive years of my own kids in my own classes. So we knew going into this as a family that this was our community. Is not, we live here in the community. We're surrounded by our neighbors who are our colleagues and friends and students. And so I knew that putting all this time and stuff into it was an investment in our family and our community. But there were times when I often, like every day, would feel like when I was at school, like, God, I should be home spending more time with my own family, or I'd be at home and might be lesson planning in my head. You know how that goes. So I still felt torn, even though my kids were part of the program. So I don't know what the actual answer is, but I alleviated my own guilt. I gave myself kind of permission to do that because I knew my own kids would be in the program and benefit as well. I think I went on overdrive, but I justified it. Now I'm looking, this will be my fourth year without my own kids in the program because they're all graduated and grown. Um, and that's when I've looked at it and gone, how did I let it get so crazy like that? And I don't want to miss out as time comes with grandchildren and stuff down the line. So I think getting a good balance, it took me, now I look at it and I go, I really overdid it back then. But in my own head, I was justifying it because it was there was such a blur between business and personal and family and school and everything.
That's very insightful. Thank you.
Yeah.
My entire attitude with life right now is, well, part of it is like, just hold on a little longer. but the other part is do what's most important now. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like don't wait and put it off and think someday I'll do blah blah blah, or someday I'll do this or that or the other. Someday I'll take care of myself. Someday I'll learn to do yoga or meditate in the morning. Someday I'll integrate that new thing that's going to be so fantastic. Why wait? Have you reached that point in your life too?
Yeah, I did. I did that with push-ups. I lost a lot of weight and stuff, but my arms were still flabby. And I was not going to lie, it was vanity. I was tired of conducting the band, stopping them, and then my arms would still jiggle. So on April 1st, I decided I'm going to do a little bit. I got to do something, but I needed it to build up strength, but I didn't know how, and it seemed so overwhelming. But then I was like, what if I just did one push-up? And I almost died. I thought I was going to die doing one push-up. And then on April 2nd, I did two push-ups. And on April 3rd, I did three push-ups. as I started doing them, the first couple got easier each day, but it was just doing that little bit and investing just a little bit of time each day. Well, by April 15th, I did 15 push-ups. And then on April 16th, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to do 16 today. I'm going to do 15. But then I did another set of 15. So suddenly I had done 30 push-ups by the 16th day. I couldn't have done 30 push-ups on April 1st, but by doing a little bit now in the moment, I have built that up. And it's the same thing. Spend just a minute or two maybe in quietness, in that, as you want to settle your mind down, and then add another 30 seconds the next day, or do whatever, but just start doing it in a manageable chunk. One push-up was manageable. 2 push-ups was manageable. Starting with 16 or 30 or 50 would not have been. But yeah, you're so right. Don't wait. Just do something, one little step towards something that's important to, and you'd be amazed at the results. You feel better. You are in a different mental space, and you prove to yourself that life is worth living right now.
My dear, amazing, outstanding music educator friend and colleague, you have got this. If you're not happy in your current situation, fearlessly change it. Decide if it's yourself that needs to change first, or work toward changing your situation. There's not much you can do to force change elsewhere, but you can work toward it. And if you want to be truly happy, you get to work on yourself first. Just like Leslie and I discussed, if there's just one thing you can do today to start changing your life, it's meditation. 10 minutes first thing in the morning is the trick. Make yourself a cup of tea or coffee or cocoa or whatever delicious drink you enjoy in the morning, and set a timer. You can use an app. Whatever you need to make it become a habit. Just like every day you shower, you brush your teeth, you eat, and all of those things you do, you take care of your body. Now it's time to take care of your mind and your spirit. Wow, I sound really spiritual right now. Remember to access the show notes for this episode, because you're going to get lots of goodies. A link where you can go to download Leslie's book, one to learn about how she can further help you, a link to my book, and a free morning meditation checklist so you can download and print it to help guide and encourage you. While you're online grabbing those goodies, remember to check out the Virtual Honor Band by Smart Music and the International Music Education Summit. You can find all the information at musiceducationsummit.org/audition-information, and we'll have a link to that in the show notes as well. If you haven't already tried Smart Music for yourself to see how it can enhance your students' practice, you can sign up while on their website too. And with that, I bid you to have a happy day, a happy week, a happy year, and most of all, a happy life, so you can keep teaching on.